Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and we're going to start out with this website here, and we're going to look at this article, Trump to redirect money to enhance Congress wall funding, Chief of Staff says. And this was put out on February 10th. It was updated later on. There were a couple things that they added in, but it's a pretty good article here. President Donald Trump plans to supplement any border wall funding agreed upon by Congress with monies from other areas of the budget to get his goal of reinforcing the southern border with a physical barrier. And that is from Mick Mulvaney. Now, if you go through this, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but basically it's saying, yes, Trump is going to find the money somehow, some way. He's going to find it. And if not, it's going to end up being another shutdown after February 15th if they don't get it by then. Now, some of the offers that they have going on between 0 to 2.6 billion. Well, if they give him only 2.6 billion, then he will find the other that to make up the 5.7 billion somewhere else. He's got other places that he can find it legally, and so he will do that definitely. In some ways, I kind of wonder if he hasn't already tasked the military to do some of it, because he keeps saying that it's already being built. And so I wonder if he's not doing it without people really knowing about it. Although I can't believe they could keep that a secret. That would be a little tough. But a lot of it is already being done, and I'm not sure how they're working that with the budget, but I'm sure if there's a way, Trump has found it. He's really good at finding a way to do those things legally. So we'll find out, and it will be legal. He makes sure that everything he does is perfectly legal. He wants to make sure that he's above board. Anyway, it goes on and it talks about, they're talking about maybe having him sign any bill. No, he's not going to say that. He cannot sign everything they put in front of him. There'd be some things that simply we wouldn't agree to. So the government shutdown is technically still on the table. So it could still be. And we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that they're at least talking, although Nancy isn't. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer don't want any part of it. So I just don't see how it's going to come to fruit. I do think it's served as kind of a wedge in the House Democrats, because they are starting to separate a little bit on this. There's a lot of Democrats that are just tired of this and they want to negotiate. And they see the things that are being offered that they do want, and they can't believe that their leadership is turning their backs on it. So I think Nancy is losing a few points here with some of her people. She only got in as speaker by a very, very small margin. I think it was only like 2 people. So she did not get in very comfortably. And this could turn and bite her in the butt. I'm not sure, but it very well could be. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Anyway, so if you go through this, it's saying that basically the same thing, and that he's calling it a crisis. And well, Obama did too in 2014, called it a crisis. And, Trump has been pointing to this, the increasing number of illegal crossings since migrant caravans started storming the border in recent months, along with drug and human trafficking. And so there's, this information down here, but for the most part, this article is just pointing out that, yes, Trump is going to find a way to get the money to build the wall. He will find a way. And then Trump tweeted this out. This was a quote from Tom McClintock. President is on sound legal ground to declare a national emergency. There have been 58 national emergencies declared since the law was enacted in 1976, and 31 right now that are currently active. So this is hardly unprecedented. And that's the thing, and I agree with this person. Do it. We need a wall. So he tweeted this quote from Tom McClintock. So, and there's Tom McClintock. He's a congressman, represents California District 4. So, interesting, huh? But I thought I'd show that to you. And yes, he is going to find a way. I don't know how he's going to do it, but he will. Then this came out today as well. And this was the case for Russia collusion against the Democrats. This is from John Solomon, and I don't know who his sources are, but John Solomon has some very excellent sources because he is spot on most of the time. And this is the interesting thing. He starts out saying, now that both the House and Senate investigative committees have cleared Donald Trump of Democrat-inspired allegations of Russian collusion, it is worth revisiting one anecdote that escaped significant attention during the hysteria, but continues to have U.S. security implications. And essentially, if you go through this, this is the one with all the Russian names. I'm not even going to really attempt it because essentially it's talking about, hey, you know what? Bill Clinton went to do a speech in Russia, $500,000 check for that single speech, and it raised eyebrows. And yes, there were all these Russians that they had connections to, especially this guy who was a senior official of Rosatom, and that was the Russian nuclear giant seeking states' permission to buy uranium-1, which was a Canadian company with massive U.S. uranium reserves. So that was huge. If you don't know about uranium-1, it was a deal that was made during the time that Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State. It was for Rosatom here to buy the uranium-1, which was a Canadian company, but it did have a lot of U.S. uranium reserves. In fact, I believe it's 20% of our U.S. uranium reserves. And that did go through, and it had to go through Hillary Clinton's State Department. So she was part of all this. And then about the same time, you know, you have Bill getting all this big check for this particular speech. I mean, $500,000 for one speech. Wow. I mean, that's a lot. I don't know anybody that is worth that much money. And especially now, if you've seen, I think the last time I heard the Clintons were having some kind of speech together, the two of them. And they had to put their tickets on discount sale because nobody was buying them. So, yeah, they're not very popular anymore. The left have left them out to dry, really. They have turned their back on them. But then that's the way those kind of people work. So anyway, the FBI had equal concern about Rosatom's acquisition of uranium-1, and there was some concern, but who kept that from really being investigated? Well, that's what they're going to be finding out, the investigative committees and stuff. And I think this is all going to start coming out soon. Honestly, I think John Solomon knows. I think he has the whole story. And I think that he's letting it out in little bits and pieces, so people will pick it up a little at a time. Why is that effective? Well, you know, if you've ever had a huge, big shock and a big dump of information put on you all at once, it's difficult to absorb. And if it comes out in smaller chunks, a little at a time, then it makes it a lot easier to understand. And that's really the important part. It's not just that people hear these things, but that they understand the significance of them and what's really been going on. So if you're not familiar with this, what happened was Rosatom purchased this company, Uranium-1, and because of that, the uranium that they had was tagged with Russia, okay, because all uranium is tagged with wherever it comes from. That way they can track it. And with this particular one, it was tagged for Russia because then it belonged to Rosatom, which was Russian. And some of that uranium was siphoned off and taken to North Korea. And then some of it was also put in Iran. And those two countries have been used by black hats in the CIA and the cabal to put together nuclear bombs. Why? Why are those two countries the big nuclear threats? Because those two countries were tasked with making nuclear bombs so they could send them over here to the United States. Then when they exploded, what would it be tracked to? Russia. And that would start World War III. That's what the cabal wanted. They wanted World War III. Why did they want World War III? Because wars are very lucrative for them. They make a lot of money off of it, and more money means more power. And then their goal is to reduce the population of the world significantly. And that means that they want to take it from the 7.5 billion that it is now, if those numbers are accurate, by the way. And they want to reduce them to about 500 million. So it's significantly less than what it is now. Of course, they just want themselves and then their servants left. That's really all they want. And so that's their goal, to do that. And this is one of the things that they were planning with this. If you watch my video on the 16-year plan, that was 8 years of Obama and then 8 more years of Hillary Clinton, and World War III was in there. That's why she talked about it so much. That was their plan. And Donald Trump is right. If he had not been elected, we would be in World War III right now. And it would have been a nuclear war, and millions of people would have died. So this is something that we should be very grateful for. I do think that it was an intervention by God that he got in when he did. And I thank God every day for this plan that is going to bring us back to control our country again. Okay, so anyway, I will leave this for you. It goes on and talks about how all of this was coming together, all these different things. And really it documents the Democrats and their connection to Russians. And it says here, implicit in Russia's development of Skolkovo is a critical question, a question that Russia may be asking itself. Why bother spying on foreign companies and government laboratories if they will voluntarily hand over all the expertise Russia seeks? That's because the Skolkovo was getting help from the United States. And it was like, why would they need to spy on them when the U.S. is just offering it there on a plate? And this was going on as well. And the FBI went further and sent letters warning several U.S. technology companies that had become entangled with Skolkovo that they risked possible espionage. And an agent in the Bureau's Boston office wrote an extraordinary op-ed to publicize the alarm. So there were some warnings from the FBI. And the FBI had equal concern about Rosatom's acquisition of uranium-1. And Mueller was involved in the uranium-1 thing, and so was Rod Rosenstein. So lots of connections there. And then you have Glenn Simpson, which, of course, Glenn Simpson's Fusion GPS research firm was secretly hired by the Clinton campaign and Democratic Party through their law firm Perkins Coie. And then they hired Christopher Steele, who was desperate to defeat Trump. And, of course, they were all trying to say Trump-Russia collusion. Oh, he was involved in that. When really they were the ones that were dealing with Russians to get all this information. So that's this article right here. And again, if you're not familiar with the whole situation by now, this would be a very good read. But if you know about the situation, it's just recapping it. It says, here are the reasons why the Democrats need to be looked into. However, now the Democrats are in charge of the House. Do you think they're going to look into themselves and their role? Now, it's very possible that Mueller will come out and he will have a report on the Democrats colluding with Russia, because that's what he was tasked to do. He was tasked to look at any Russian collusion, any collusion with Russia. So maybe Mueller actually is doing that. Now, I don't know. There's a lot of speculation as to whether he's a black hat, a white hat, or a gray hat. We don't know whether he's really a good guy or really a bad guy, in the middle. We know he's done some bad things in the past. We do know that. And so I tend to think that he probably has had a deal made with him. Mueller has been collecting all of this information about all the different connections here and there, because I think he's been trying to keep it away from all of Trump's people and the DOJ and anybody who could do anything about it. Now, the question is he doing that in order to really protect the deep state, or is he doing that to protect this information from the deep state so that he holds it until it's time for it to come out? And if that's the case, he could very well be the person to blow all this wide open. His report's supposed to be out within the next 30 days. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I don't know which direction it's going to go, but there is no collusion with Trump. So I know for sure that even if it says that, it's all going to be proven bogus pretty soon. So we have this, and where's all that stuff going? Well, it's very possible that he is working for the deep state still, but I really don't think so at this point. And the major reason for that is because he did meet with Trump the day before he was appointed as the special counsel. He met with Trump, and it was under the guise of interviewing for the FBI position, James Comey's position. But he couldn't do that because there were term limits on the law, and he couldn't do that. He was already at his term limit, so there was no way he was eligible for the job. So he could not have done that. Why would he have met with Trump? Then why would the White House claim it was to interview for this job that he wasn't eligible for? So lots of interesting stuff there. And I don't know exactly what color Mueller's hat is at this point, but I'm starting to think it's probably going to work towards the good guy's favor. Now, he probably is a gray hat at this point, but I do think he's probably controlled. I mean, that's just my opinion on that at this point, and it may change later on, but that's where I am now. Okay, this was an article, an older article. This was from 10/19/17. And this was where they were really raising it again. John Solomon was raising the question of Bill Clinton sought states' permission to meet with Russian nuclear official during Obama uranium decision. So yes, there were questions going on, and John Solomon was raising them. So keep an eye on his work at The Hill. It has some good articles and some not so great. This is somebody you really want to keep track of, because I do think he knows the whole story. And he's just putting it out little at a time. Anyway, more. Check this one out. This is the 13th week, the Gilets Jaunes and the Yellow Vests. And there are still ongoing protests. This is stuff you're not seeing on the news. There's ongoing protests in all cities in France. Mainstream media, a few protesters, protests against Macron government, high taxes, labor laws. I mean, really, France has had high taxes for a very long time. And labor laws, they've had a lot of unemployment and just stuff like that. More than 1,000 arrested, hundreds wounded, multiple dead. So I'm going to play this, but I'm not going to put the sound on. There. Okay. And see, you can see just the massive amount of people. I mean, this is not just a few. This is not a handful, folks. This is a lot of people. These are big, wide streets here in Paris. And here they are, filling them up. And it goes on both directions. I mean, this is a lot of people. And this is happening in France. But we're not hearing about it because our media is blacking it out. It's not just France. This is happening across Europe. And this type of awakening is happening everywhere, especially with the Q movement. And if you go to Google and you Google QAnon and you put in the news and get just for this past week, there's a lot of Q stuff going on. Here's one about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And, other things, but there's a lot of Q coming up. This is just from this past week. And see more, celebrities and politicians who ruined their career in seconds just by mentioning QAnon. And see other ones in different languages. You've got all kinds of stuff going on here. QAnon is not just in the United States. So, yeah, lots of them. And there's a lot more you could go to. So, yeah, it is out there. And why should there still be a lot of articles about it? Because if Q really is not true, then why write articles about him? I mean, it's already supposedly been debunked, although none of their debunking actually works. And the movement is a whole lot bigger than it was. And especially if you go to some of the Q sites, you can start to see qmap.pub. You can see there that how many people are on it. And by the way, if you hear a purring sound in the background, that's my cat. He purrs really loud. And again, he usually isn't around me this time of night, but yeah, he decided tonight he would be. I did want to show you that. All of these links will be down below. You can look at it again and share it with people. If you're on Twitter especially, share it around because people need to see how massive this is. This is a lot of people because this is a significant issue. It's an anti-globalism thing going on. And people do not want to be part of it anymore. That's what the Gilets Jaunes is about. Okay, and then there's this one, and this is a tweet. You may have heard that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was seen at this little musical thing. Well, no, not necessarily. There are no pictures of her. And if you look at this says photos from the notorious RBG Musical at National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. tonight show that Justice Ginsburg was not among the very small crowd, despite WAPO's claims. WAPO's is Washington Post. So, yeah, she was not there. It was not a lot of people, so it was very easy to see that she was not there. And the Constitution Center uploaded the musical on YouTube as unlisted. No one would find it and see that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not there. See, that's the thing. She was not there. And I will link to this so that you'll have this link right here and you can see the concert yourself. You can check out that, no, she wasn't there. She really was not. So now you have to ask yourself, why did Jack Posobiec say that she was there and that he saw her there when he didn't see her there and she wasn't there? Something strange. Yeah, Jack, I used to follow Jack on Twitter. I thought he had some good stuff. But not anymore. He's done some bad things, so I'm not too much of a fan of his anymore, and I take everything he says with a grain of salt. So there you go. These are some photos that kind of proves that no, she wasn't there. Nobody has seen her. So where is Ruth? Where is Ruth? Nobody knows. Well, I think we probably know. I have been working on a video of the hearing with Matthew Whitaker. I started out with Jerry Nadler, who did the opening statement at the beginning, and it dawned on me, I got to do a rebuttal video on this. So I did a rebuttal video, but it's going to take some editing, and that's going to take me a little while, and I just didn't have time tonight, so I thought I'd do this, which is a little faster, but not as fast as I'd like it to be. I'm going to put this down below. This is just the opening statement that Matt Whitaker had. And so I thought it was very good to hear. If you haven't heard him say it, then you can just read through it. I will put the link down below. I thought it was really good. Now, speaking of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and possibly her demise, I found this one. Yeah, isn't that lovely? Now, I'm all for composting, but I'm not for composting humans. Okay? I do understand that your body goes back to the dust. I do understand that. And like I said, I'm kind of a gardening person, so I like the idea of composting. But I think there's this dignity that humans have that needs to be respected. And so I think there has to be something separate and set apart for the dignity of the humans. And this, I don't agree with. And so I thought I would put that in there. I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm not even going to read it, because if I do, I'm pretty sure that won't go over well with them. But anyway, then I wanted to show you this, that yes, if you put in QAnon in Google every once in a while, I rarely use Google. If you put QAnon in, you're going to see all these things. And of course, they're all connected with the conspiracy theory. And I know some of you who are watching this probably think that Q is a conspiracy theory. But if you look at a lot of the evidence, I think you would start to see differently, because this is not just something in one place. This is across the world. Just like the Gilets Jaunes, Q is everywhere. There are all kinds of signs from different places across the world. So yes, there are a lot of articles, but here's the thing you need to think about. If there's something that's a conspiracy theory that you don't believe in, why would you spend your time writing articles about it? You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense that they're spending their time and energy on these articles about Q. It just seems like overkill to me. This is just from this week. And look at all this. Oh yeah, Russian troll accounts purged by Twitter. Yes, except I know a bunch of those people and they weren't Russian trolls. They were real people. And they got their accounts purged under this. So I'm not a Russian troll. I'm a real person. I live in the United States. I was born in the United States. I've lived here all my life. except for 6 months when I lived in France, okay? I have lived here my entire life. I'm an American, and I voted for Trump. I was not a Russian troll. These people who had their Twitter accounts purged were Americans. You know, see, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was seen in public Monday, so anybody who says otherwise, that's a conspiracy theory. Although we have pictures here, photos from inside that actual concert that show she was not there. So who is doing the conspiracy here? Is it a conspiracy to say that she hasn't been seen? Or is it a conspiracy to make up a lie that she was there when we see visual evidence she was not there? So it's very interesting to see all of these and see what they have about it. But look at all. I mean, there's 10 pages of them. But again, it makes no sense for you to write so many articles about a conspiracy theory if it's not true. You don't see people writing a bunch of articles about reptilians, do you? You don't see a bunch of people writing articles about flat Earth. You don't see people writing a bunch of articles about, oh, I don't know, the hole in Antarctica. You know, there are a lot of things out there that are unexplained, and there's a lot of theories out there. But this whole term, conspiracy theory, has been used to discredit anything they don't want in the mainstream narrative. So conspiracy theory does not mean somebody's crazy. It just means they have a theory that there was some kind of conspiracy put together. And honestly, right now, the Democrats have a conspiracy theory about Trump and Russia. That's a conspiracy theory because there's absolutely no proof to back it up. That's what I've got for you tonight. Don't forget to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and click on the bell so you get notified when I put out my next video. And I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.